Why does collective stupidity always seem to triumph, even over brilliance, reason, or the most careful strategy? The question is disturbing because it suggests that history isn't written by the wise, but by the herd. Machiavelli saw this truth with unflinching eyes. In the streets of Florence, in the courts of princes, in the chaos of republics rising and falling, he witnessed how intelligence was fragile, isolated, and powerless against the weight of the ignorant many. We are taught to believe that intelligence guides humanity forward, that wisdom wins in the end. But what if this is nothing more than a comforting myth? Machiavelli's observations pierced that illusion. He noted that individuals may be sharp, cunning, capable of rational thought. Yet when these individuals are fused into a collective, something terrible happens. The crowd becomes stupid. Its reasoning collapses, its memory shortens, its passions boil, and its ability to be manipulated becomes absolute. A single man may weigh consequences carefully. 10,000 men together will follow a banner into ruin, cheering as they go. This is not stupidity in the sense of lack of intelligence. Collective stupidity is something far more sinister. It is the process by which intelligence dissolves in the acid of conformity. The wise become silent, fearing the mob's anger. The fool becomes bold, protected by numbers. Soon, what was once a group of individuals becomes an organism ruled not by thought, but by instinct. An instinct easily captured by those who understand power. Machiavelli saw it play out again and again. In Rome, crowds cheered the gladiator games while the Senate rotted in corruption. In Florence, republics were toppled not by superior reason, but by mobs who could be swayed with promises of bread, spectacle, or vengeance. He understood what terrified so many philosophers, that the collective prefers comfort over truth, slogans over thought, illusions over reality. History, for Machiavelli, was not driven by truth winning out, but by the manipulation of this stupidity. Princes did not rise because they were wiser. They rose because they learned to harness the blind, predictable forces of the masses. They learned that fear and hope, not logic and evidence, decide the fate of nations. And once the masses were in motion, reason had no power to stop them. What makes this terrifying is its permanence. Even today, the principle holds. Intellectuals debate in journals, scientists issue warnings, philosophers craft arguments. And yet one slogan, one chant, one viral lie can move millions faster than any truth ever could. The crowd will mock what it does not understand and destroy what it fears. Machiavelli would not be surprised. He would merely shrug and remind us, power belongs not to the wise, but to those who can command the stupid. But if stupidity always wins, then what does this mean for us? Should the intelligent despair? Or is there a darker strategy hidden in this reality, one that Machiavelli hinted at but dared not write too openly? This is the forbidden truth he left behind, that intelligence, if it seeks to survive, must learn not to resist the collective stupidity, but to direct it. And so the haunting question emerges. If collective stupidity is the most powerful force in politics, then where does true power really lie? In wisdom or in the art of manipulating the herd? The crowd does not think, it feels. This was the unshakable observation that Machiavelli returned to again and again. When a man stands alone, he may deliberate, calculate, and weigh possibilities. But once he is swallowed by the mass, something dissolves within him. His sense of responsibility weakens, his reason fades, and he becomes vulnerable to suggestion. This is the essence of collective stupidity, not a lack of individual intelligence, but the evaporation of reason when submerged in numbers. Why does this happen? Because in the crowd, fear and desire rule more powerfully than thought. The crowd wants to be united. It wants to be certain. It wants to be told who the enemy is and what the future holds. It despises complexity. Logic feels slow, fragile, and cold. But a chant, a symbol, a story, it travels like fire through the herd, igniting passion in every heart. Machiavelli understood this psychological shift centuries before modern thinkers gave it names. He saw that men in groups abandon themselves willingly, intoxicated by the security of numbers. This is why slogans triumph over arguments. A detailed explanation, no matter how correct, struggles to move the masses. A leader who says justice is complicated will be ignored. A leader who shouts, "They are the enemy," will be obeyed. To the crowd, truth is boring, but certainty is intoxicating. Machiavelli's genius was to admit openly what others denied, that the multitude wants illusions, not truths. As he wrote, "People are so simple and so obedient to necessity that he who deceives will always find someone willing to be deceived." Once we accept this, the terrifying clarity appears. Collective stupidity is not an accident. It is a tool. Leaders cultivate it, nourish it, and wield it because it makes ruling easier. Why encourage critical thought when doubt and debate weaken unity? It is far more efficient to teach the crowd to cheer, to fear, to hope blindly. And once the crowd has tasted the sweetness of belonging, it will punish anyone who dares disrupt it with inconvenient truths. Think of how easy it is to sway a group. The technique has not changed in 500 years. You begin with fear. Convince the people that danger lurks, that enemies plot against them. Then add simplicity. Offer a clear solution, a single banner under which they may march. Finally, reward them with emotion. Give them the pride of thinking they are strong, united, chosen. By the time reason tries to speak, it is already drowned by the roar of the multitude. Machiavelli saw that even the wisest rulers cannot govern with truth alone. Truth isolates, but the lie, if it is simple and flattering, unites. This is why collective stupidity is so enduring. It feeds the deep human desire for certainty and belonging. And it is why power is always drawn to it like iron to a magnet. The tragedy, of course, is that once collective stupidity takes hold, it becomes self-sustaining. The crowd defends its illusions with ferocity. Anyone who challenges them is branded as a traitor, an outsider, or even inhuman. Rational debate no longer matters. The crowd has already chosen its reality, and it will defend that reality with rage. Here lies the dark brilliance of Machiavelli's insight. Stupidity is not the absence of intelligence, but the surrender of it. And because people willingly surrender their reason when they join the mass, the leader who understands this has a weapon more potent than any army. He does not need to persuade individuals one by one. He only needs to ignite the collective mood and then ride it to power. The question then becomes, if the crowd's stupidity can be turned into a weapon, who dares to wield it, and to what end? If collective stupidity is always present in human affairs, the true genius of power lies in turning it into a weapon. Machiavelli, more than any of his contemporaries, understood this grim art. He did not see stupidity as a defect to be corrected, but as raw material, pliable and explosive, waiting to be shaped by a ruler with vision or ambition. Why does the wise man often perish, while the cunning ruler thrives? Because the wise man seeks truth, but the ruler seeks control. And control requires not enlightenment, but obedience. The masses are like a river. They are powerful, restless, and blind. The ruler who tries to dam them with reason will be swept away. But the ruler who digs a channel, who bends the flow toward his own ends, becomes master of their force. Machiavelli watched princes, popes, and generals employ the same strategies. First, they identified a common enemy. It did not matter if the enemy was real or imagined. What mattered was that the crowd could unite in hatred. Hatred is simple. It requires no thought. When the Florentines feared the French, when the Romans raged against Carthage, when any people are taught to despise a rival tribe or heretic, they abandon doubt and march with one mind. A divided people becomes one body when it has an enemy to hate. Second, leaders transform stupidity into pride. The mob does not want to feel ignorant. It wants to feel chosen. Clever rulers feed this hunger. They tell the crowd that their simplicity is purity, their blind faith is loyalty, their refusal to question is strength. In this way, stupidity is transmuted into virtue. The very qualities that make the people easiest to manipulate become the ones they are most proud of. Once this alchemy is complete, no amount of logic can penetrate the armor of their self-image. Third, rulers distract the masses with spectacle. Machiavelli saw how festivals, parades, executions, and games were not mere entertainments but instruments of control. Bread and circuses in Rome, public burnings in Florence, pageantry in the courts of kings, all served the same purpose: to fill the minds of the people with noise, leaving no room for reflection. In distraction, stupidity thrives. A crowd that laughs, cheers, or trembles at the stage does not question the throne. This is why, Machiavelli argued, the intelligent man is so often crushed by history. He may see more clearly, but he stands alone. His wisdom isolates him, while the stupidity of the masses binds them together. The lone thinker may be correct, but he has no army. The crowd, though wrong, has numbers, and those numbers can destroy him in an instant. Truth without power is fragile. Illusion with power is unbreakable. The cunning ruler therefore does not try to fight stupidity with enlightenment. He fertilizes it, cultivates it, and reaps it like a crop. He repeats simple slogans until they feel eternal. He rewards obedience with a sense of belonging. He punishes doubt with humiliation or exclusion. In this way, stupidity becomes a fortress for his rule, defended not by soldiers but by the very people he deceives. Consider the terrifying elegance of this strategy. The ruler does not need to suppress every voice of dissent. The mob will do it for him. Once intoxicated with the pride of belonging, the people themselves will hunt down the heretics, the doubters, the intellectuals. The ruler merely smiles from the shadows, knowing that his greatest enforcers are not soldiers, but citizens too blind to see they are enslaved. Machiavelli's forbidden truth was not that stupidity exists, but that it can be sharpened into the deadliest blade of power. Those who master this craft rise. Those who ignore it fall. And the question grows darker still. If stupidity can be forged into a weapon, who can possibly resist it? Every weapon comes with a cost, and the weaponization of collective stupidity is no exception. Machiavelli knew that the crowd could be led, deceived, and manipulated. But he also saw that once unleashed, stupidity was unpredictable. A prince who rides the passions of the masses may feel powerful, but he is also sitting on a storm that can devour him the moment he falters. The first cost is volatility. The crowd is not loyal to truth, nor even to leaders. It is loyal only to its emotions. Today, it can cheer a ruler as a savior. Tomorrow, It can tear him to pieces as a tyrant. Machiavelli witnessed how Florentine rulers, once adored, were dragged into exile or death when the mood shifted. The very stupidity that once gave them strength became their downfall. Why? Because stupidity has no memory. It forgets promises, forgets sacrifices, forgets victories. It remembers only the intensity of its present passion. The second cost is corruption. When rulers rely on stupidity, they must continually feed it. Lies must grow larger, spectacles must grow louder, enemies must grow more monstrous. To stop is to risk awakening thought. And so the leader becomes a prisoner of his own deception. He cannot rule with moderation, for moderation feels boring to the crowd. He cannot allow quiet reflection, for reflection breeds doubt. Thus, to maintain his grip, he must escalate endlessly. Each lie must be greater than the last, each promise more extravagant, each distraction more intoxicating. The ruler becomes a servant of the stupidity he once controlled. The third cost is decay. Societies that elevate stupidity inevitably rot from within. They may appear strong, united under banners and chants, but their foundations weaken. Knowledge withers because it is despised. Debate dies because it is dangerous. Innovation slows because it threatens the old illusions. In the short term, stupidity can build an empire of obedience. In the long term, it hollows that empire into collapse. Machiavelli saw this in Rome, in Florence, in every state that rose and fell. The cycle repeated: strength through manipulation, decline through stagnation. But the most terrifying cost of all is violence. Collective stupidity is not passive. Once inflamed, it demands action against enemies, against traitors, against imagined threats. A ruler who unleashes it must constantly point it outward, lest it turn inward and devour the state itself. And so wars are waged, purges conducted, heretics burned. The mob's hunger for certainty and vengeance must be fed, or else it begins to question. The blood of innocence becomes the currency of stability. This is why Machiavelli's insights were both practical and bleak. He did not romanticize the crowd. He did not believe in some hidden wisdom of the many. He saw plainly, the stupidity of the collective can be used to seize power, but it carries with it the seeds of chaos. To master it requires constant vigilance, endless cunning, and the acceptance that eventually even the most skillful manipulator may be destroyed by the very forces he exploited. And yet, despite these dangers, rulers continue to choose this path. Why? Because it works. Because no other force in politics is as immediate, as overwhelming, as irresistible as the collective stupidity of the crowd. It is both the deadliest weapon and the most unstable foundation. To reject it is to remain weak. To embrace it is to gamble with destruction. Machiavelli's forbidden truth forces us into this paradox. The very stupidity that secures power ensures eventual ruin. The ruler must decide: cling to fragile wisdom and risk irrelevance, or wield stupidity and risk catastrophe. Either way, the crowd remains the decisive force, and the wise remain its victims. Which leaves us with the final, haunting question. If collective stupidity always wins, is there any hope of resisting it? Or must survival itself be built on mastering the madness? What then is left for those who see clearly? If collective stupidity always wins, if power feeds upon ignorance and illusion, how can the individual, or even the state, survive? This was the darkest corner of Machiavelli's thought, the truth he never declared openly but which whispered between his lines. One does not defeat stupidity. One learns to live with it, bend around it, and, if bold enough, to wield it. The first path is silence. The thinker who values truth above survival must often retreat, disguising his insight. To challenge the crowd directly is to invite destruction. The masses do not forgive those who make them feel foolish. They destroy them with fury. Machiavelli himself knew this danger well, choosing his words carefully, cloaking his brutal clarity in parables of princes and republics. He was not merely advising rulers. He was protecting himself from the stupidity that might crush him for daring to speak plainly. The second path is disguise. Those who understand the game must sometimes wear masks, speaking the language of the crowd while quietly pursuing their own designs. The wise may cloak themselves in the robes of religion, nationalism, or morality, even if they know these are illusions. By appearing to praise what the masses worship, they buy the freedom to maneuver beneath the surface. The art of survival is not to destroy stupidity, but to redirect it, as a rider redirects a wild horse without trying to tame it. The third path is mastery. The rarest and most dangerous choice is to wield stupidity as a weapon oneself. This requires not only cynicism, but genius. To harness the collective, one must abandon the dream of truth as a guiding light and embrace illusion as a tool. Machiavelli knew that such rulers were both the most powerful and the most cursed. They stood atop nations drunk with delusion, knowing all the while that their reign depended upon a fragile lie. Their brilliance lay in balancing fear with hope, hatred with pride, illusion with spectacle. Few could walk this line for long without falling. And yet, Machiavelli left a glimmer of a fourth path, a forbidden one. Though he admitted that stupidity always triumphs in the short term, he hinted that long-lasting power rests on adaptability. Leaders who endure are those who combine the manipulation of stupidity with occasional doses of truth, carefully timed and strategically released. Too much truth, and the crowd revolts. Too much illusion, and the state collapses. The true master is not he who drowns his people in ignorance forever, but he who knows when to blind them, when to distract them, and when, sparingly, to open their eyes just enough to prevent total decay. For the rest of us, Machiavelli's forbidden truth offers a warning. Never underestimate the crowd. Intelligence, reason, and morality are fragile when pitted against the roar of collective stupidity. To believe otherwise is to risk being consumed by it. History is littered with the bodies of men who thought the truth would save them, only to find themselves torn apart by the very people they sought to enlighten. Thus, the final paradox emerges. Survival does not belong to the pure, the wise, or the righteous. It belongs to those who accept the world as it is, not as it should be. The world is ruled by passions, illusions, and stupidity, and to navigate it, one must be willing to conceal, adapt, or deceive. Machiavelli's forbidden truth, then, is not a lesson in despair, but in realism. Collective stupidity will always win in the battle for power. But to those who understand its mechanics, there remains a choice: to be its victim or to be its master. And so the question lingers, unanswered, haunting every age of politics. In a world where stupidity rules, do you dare to fight it, or will you learn the darker art of bending it to your will?